Monday nights, join the team on No Limits.
Today, we're going to have a look at mental health and illness.
Daniel's going to show you how this great device works. It's a hop and a push.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Own life.
The Marngrook Footy Show, focusing on our Indigenous stars.
This week we speak to one of the greatest goal kickers of all time. We'll talk to Magpie legend Peter McKenna about a magnificent career that netted 874 goals.
Community TV, any time of day
And any type of weather.
Stupid TV.
The sonic sorcery of Matt Tribe there, putting together a wonderful tribute pastiche to Channel 31. How many of the voices or shows did you recognise? The Stings. Have you been connected to the network in any way? 1300 222 774. I can't pinch unofficial history from Drive, but we're doing our own version tonight because it's been a real treat just to have walk through the studio doors. The four guests, yes, and all begin with S, so there must be some conspiracy going on. I'll begin on my left, just so you can put faces to names. We've got Sarah Barton, who joins us, the creator and producer of No Limits, that we have been talking about already. Welcome to you, Sarah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
The fourth member of the Three Musketeers who's just joined us as well is Shane Dunlop, who's the general manager of Channel 31. G'day, Shane.
Thanks, David. Yeah,
you're clearly one of those exuberant yes and bosses who just says, yeah, look, I've come along, I may as well hop on air. Great to have you with us, Shane.
Thank you.
And Stephen Hall is also with us, the host, long-time host of Under Melbourne Tonight, which was conspiratorial by definition. And that was about 6 or 7 years was your tenure behind that in that gig, wasn't it, Stephen?
Yes, yeah. We did Under Melbourne Tonight for a few years, but then it sort of morphed into another show called Under Melbourne Tonight Presents What's Going On There. And we also had a show called Under Melbourne Tonight Presents Who Shout, which was set in an imaginary pub that went from suburb to suburb every week.
Well, sort of like a CSI franchise, really.
Yeah, I guess so. Not quite as lucrative, but yes, quite long running, yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And Shelley Ware also with us as well, Kolkata, Wurrungu and a Yaljarjara woman who's been part of the Marngrook Footy Show, which we also heard in that package. Good evening to you, Shelley.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Now, is that for you? I'll start with you, Shelley. Did your involvement with Channel 31, was it through the Footy Show initially? Was that how you got connected?
Yes, through the Footy Show. That's exactly what happened. So Marngrook was on 31 and then was with ABC and SBS, but at the same time 31 was a big part of the show as well and broadcasting it out on television.
And how did you get seconded? How were you invited into the studio?
Well, I did a television show called Live and Kicking on Channel 7 for a few years, and then I went to Marngrook Radio when that stopped. And I had a baby, and then I got this phone call one day and they said, what are you doing on a Thursday night? And I said, not much, just looking after a 2-year-old. And they said, come on in.
Perfect. Yeah, that actually boosts the audience members too. I have to say that's an unusual trajectory because normally it's you head your way across to the commercial networks. You've had experience in the mainstream media. For you, Stephen, was your involvement through RMIT initially, is that right?
It was through RMIT, and we were doing stuff on RMIT TV, I think slightly before Channel 31.
Yeah, okay.
I was thinking about this today, and it being all Channel 31 related, and coincidentally enough, I started there 31 years ago.
Wow.
It's the magic number, but I think, that a year before Channel 31, it was RMI TV in that studio on Swanson Street, that subterranean studio there. And, we were obviously making it up as we went along, but it got much, much, much slicker. Much slicker.
What do you put that down to, Stephen?
Oh, just practice, and we're going to keep doing it until we get it right, I think. One of those sort of ethoses.
I'll turn to you last, Shane, because in a way you are the new kid on the block, even though you are the head of the pyramid at the moment. But I'll get to,
okay.
We'll explain all. And also, you've just walked in. Let's face it, you've crashed the party, but in the best way. Sarah, you were not only the producer of No Limits, but you were the innovator, the creator of No Limits. What was the inspiration?
Well, look, I was actually asked by the then station manager, Greg D, to create a disability show. I'd made a documentary for SBS, which actually won the first Logie SBF's ever won.
Congratulations! Wow.
About sex and disability. It was called Untold Desires. So I had a bit of a track record. I also just happened to have a young daughter at the time who
There's a theme emerging here.
I like it.
Yeah, I came that same direction as well.
Yeah.
So I had a young daughter who had a disability, and so Greg knew that I was kind of in that that world. And he said, we've got, all kinds of shows on Channel 31, but we don't have a disability show. I think you should make one. And I said, no. Because well, it sounded like a lot of hard work for not much reward. But we started, he was very convincing. We started it, and really now when I look back on it, I'm so pleased that I was, urged to do it, because it's one of the things I'm most proud of. And it ran for 14 years, not always with me, but it did.
Well, one of the catchwords that is associated readily with Channel 31, back to you now, Shane, and welcome. Thanks for coming in. It is groundbreaking. It does break barriers. It gives voices to marginal members of the community. I hate using that word. It's almost like it gives voices to those we don't typically see on TV. Is a better way of saying
it reflects the true Melbourne, basically.
I do remember talking to Judith Lucy doing a story about the differences between Sydney and Melbourne. And the thing that she put a finger on was community TV and community radio. She said it's the community is reflected in what you see and hear through those networks. What's your own involvement? You timed your run beautifully, like,
took over at the
Black Caviar, just chiming in at 2020.
Station. Look, I've been at 31 since 2013, so I've been around for a little while, and go back to some of the days where certainly No Limits was still running when I joined, and took it upon myself at that time to start to become a little bit of a archivalist and took an interest in the station's history. So I suppose as my time at 31 evolved and I eventually became the general manager at the perfect time, I had a sort of a really good understanding at that point of where the station had been, what shows had come through, what personalities had been involved. And then I guess fast forward to our 30th anniversary, which is coming up Saturday week.
Big gala event we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, just I guess in a good position to be able to sort of make a fist of trying to pay respects to those 3 decades of talent and all the people that came through and all the shows that were really important. And to Judith Lucy's point, I think particularly in Melbourne, community television has been really strong and driven the whole country in a lot of ways. And so it's something that I'm really proud of and something that I think the city should be really proud of. And we're getting to celebrate that next week.
It's 7:20. You're with David Astle. That voice you just heard was Shane Dunlop, who's the General Manager of Channel 31. We're also in the studio. It's quite a party in here. We've got Sarah Barton, who's the creator and producer of No Limits, the Stella Young's show, as we often know it, and created 30 episodes or so. I'm only saying that because she was such a beloved part of the airwaves here on 774, regular co-host with John Fane.
Yeah.
And also Stephen Hall, a very familiar face from Mad as Hell fans or anyone who's got an interest in quiz shows as well. He's been the Ninja Warrior on quiz shows, though he hasn't actually done It's a Knockout. And also Shelley Ware is with us. She's an AFL writer for the Courier Mail, and she's been on the Outer Sanctum and Broad Radio as well, right across. Now, you guys are, and by the way, some lovely text coming through on the text line, 0437 774 774, and you can join us. Give us a chat on 1300 222 774. So here are some texts, and then I will give the microphones to the four of you, and you can interview each other because you're all professional broadcasters. I'll shut up for a minute. So keep in mind what question you'd like to ask of whom, and leave me out of it. Jenny in Hawthorne East says, Channel 31, the best past show was Richmond 31210. Best current was the Hard Rock Show, and have discovered so many great bands, says Jenny, and local music from Andrew and the boys and girls. Love 31. Big hearts there from Jenny. This one is, yes, one of my few memories of Channel 31 was as a young primary school student 20-odd years ago, playing basketball at our school outdoor courts on a weekend. Saw someone dressed up in a Kiss-style makeup with the old school camera following him. And they asked if we could be on their show. It's airing on 31. I can't recall the name. They played basketball against us for a minute. Then that got into... anyway, that's... it just goes on and on and on. That's quite the story. So I'm going to give the microphones over to... I'll start with you, Sarah. Who would you like to ask?
I guess I have a Marngrook question, but I've got to figure out what it is. What were some of the highlights? I mean, I know for us there were a lot of really outrageous things happened when we were making the show. Do you have any kind of fond memories of your 31 days? Things that might not have happened in other broadcast areas, but you got to, well, it kind of happened at 31.
That's a great question. We got to...
That's why I shut up.
We got to interview... well, I actually did the last interview with my voice. There's a frog that's joined us, sorry, with Lionel Rose. So, I got to sit down and just have a really long conversation with Lionel Rose. His wife actually spoke for him, but he passed away the following week. So, we just... Aboriginal people came onto the show because it was a place that they felt really culturally safe and wanted to be a part of it, and we lifted them, and it was a time when people weren't really mentioning Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander players, even when they were best on ground. So, we got to highlight them and share in those memories with them, and we got to become a real family with the players. Like, a lot of the players now are a big part of even my child's life still. So that's a big special thing that I've taken away from it. But that Lionel Rose interview was pretty spectacular, to sit there and just have those moments with him.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting what you say about being culturally safe, because I think that was very much the case at No Limits as
Absolutely.
well. And, family, friends, Stella was a regular in my home, and many of the other performers were too. But on set, we really understood and learnt how to create a space that people really wanted to be in. They felt valued, they felt visible. And that old saying, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
Well, we created things for people to see and aspire to.
We did. And, a lot of the work that we've done is we've got Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and you've got people in your space that are now on mainstream media because of the work that we did on Marngrook. So, I stepped away a little bit from the AFL world, but to look at those people shining is really special to see. Yeah.
We've got a question that Justin wants to ask. Go and put it to you, Stephen. Justin's in Melton. Good evening, Justin.
G'day.
David's my name, and you want to ask a question of Stephen.
Sorry, I just for all four of them. I just want to ask them, what was it like working at Channel 31, and what made them want to become TV presenters?
I'll put that to them. It's a bit of a choppy line, Justin, but maybe I'll put that to you, Stephen. So what drew you to TV in the first place, Stephen?
I'm a show-off, and I've always enjoyed writing and acting and making people laugh, like even from school, and I was in all the school productions and things like that. And around that time, I started doing stand-up when I was 17. And we had a show on Triple R, which was allied to RMI TV, and that's how we sort of snuck our way in there. And we developed that, and it's just so much fun, we were sort of doing live television once an hour every week, getting all our sort of comedian mates in, and lots of new bands who'd never been anywhere or done anything, and everyone was sort of very excited to be there, and all sorts of people came through, Dave Hughes and Will Anderson and Joe Stanley and Michelle Laurie and Kim Hope, and lots of bands. John Safran's early band, Raspberry Cordial, were on.
We were watching a clip just today.
Oh, yeah.
TISM.
TISM were on. Yes, TISM were on, and they destroyed the joint. Yes. It was fantastic. Various other bands who've gone on to bigger and better things, and comedians, and it was just sort of anything went, and we would pre-record sketches, and we learnt on the job, and we made mistakes, and we kept getting better and better, and it was just so much fun. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how much fun it was.
I think fun is the magic word there, Justin. Sorry, not a great line, so we'll move on. Maybe I'll let you ask a question of anyone that, or one, maybe the same question of all of them. Shane, what would you like to ask?
Oh, I mean, I would have a question for each of the three, but might be slightly different. Next week, we're inducting a few different folks into the CTV Hall of Fame. We've called it, and Stella's one of those. So I'd love to hear an anecdote about Stella and her time on No Limits, or even just a personal anecdote that you have with your time with Stella.
Oh, look, I had the enormous privilege of getting to know Stella very well over many years. We were, we first met in 2003 when I was chasing her all over Victoria because I was told she was my presenter. Yes, Stella was amazing, and, we miss her a lot. But I do remember her talking to me about the change that being on No Limits made for her, because she was a regular user of public transport. She was very visible. Once you saw her once, you sort of remembered if you saw her again. And she always talked about the different way that people approached her. So before she was on community TV, people would say things, really horrible things about her disability. And, if I had that disability, I'd, want to kill myself. And she was very open about the way people responded to her impairment. But after she'd been doing No Limits for a little while, while, she said the tone changed quite a bit, and people would come up and say, "Oh, wow, I've seen you on TV. You're so cool. I love your show."
Yeah.
Now, if that's not the power of television, the power of representation, for me, that was when I knew we were doing something that was really important. And I was amazed how many people watched it, and young disabled kids also who saw people like themselves on TV and grew up to be, much more proud of who they were.
Yeah.
Shane, back to you.
Well, and Shelley, I think you kind of more or less hinted to it, but the impact that Marngrook had and how that's playing out now in particularly sport media, and how First Nations folks are being represented on television, connected to the AFL or other sports. And really, I think Marngrook was what kick-started that. So
absolutely,
how does that feel? How do you reflect on that?
It's interesting. I had like that. It wasn't always amazing at my time in that space. So it's taken a few years to sort of come to grips and work out where I feel with it.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really proud of what Marngrook did for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and players, and for children watching on, because those kids are now actually adults who are now, like Megan Waters is, she's a boundary and doing yokai footy, and there's a space still that needs to be filled, like by Marngrook. It hasn't been filled properly yet. So I think the problem is mainstream media thinks we can only have one Aboriginal show, and that's been voiced to me so many times. Like I could, if I had $1 million, I'd be a millionaire pretty much. So the fact that mainstream media still feels that we can only have one Aboriginal show is a real blight still, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And so that space hasn't been filled properly, but I'm super proud of what has been achieved from Marngrook. And people still want to talk about it, stop in the street, where is it, why isn't it back? That space still needs to be filled. So I hope something does happen, something wonderful soon.
Yeah. We still get calls. We still get people asking and all referring to it as one of their favourite all-time 31 shows. So definitely
it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, like making live television.
Yeah.
Like that, I actually miss making live television. That was, like, you look back on it and it was just so much fun making that. And you'd get on there, the light would go on and the whole world would just, like, it was just like the best energy.
Yeah.
So I do miss that.
Well, speaking of energy, my question to Stephen, and being a fan of your work, but also being a fan of watching Under Melbourne Tonight, and that early, I guess, it's a representation of the early part of 31's history.
Yes.
And there really is a strong sense of alternative. It's an alternative, alternative TV. And
you don't get that anywhere else.
Well, no. I mean, it's a little bit different now. You don't really have that, and maybe it exists in other mediums, but certainly watching that early RMI TV stuff and a lot of your early work and all of the names you mentioned, and having Tism on television would have been a huge thing at the time. Yeah. It's just that spirit of alternative, which I really loved about your time on 31.
Yes, it was raw, I think, and we were we had our segments, but it wasn't super scripted or anything like that, and the camera work and production wasn't super schmick, and you could sometimes see off into the corner where you weren't meant to look, and but we had live audiences in there, and sometimes things went wrong, and sometimes we got in trouble, but it was very, very exciting, and I'd be getting the tram into the city and walking up, finishing my gags for the monologue and scribbling them down, just going in there and getting that afternoon's newspaper and jotting stuff down. It was just very vibrant, and also another point, we made good friendships, like long and lasting friendships. You go through things with these people and they remain friends. So we had a blast. It was, and quite a few people hooked up, and it was all sorts of things happened. It was great.
Maybe we'll do that during the song.
Sorry,
not hooking up, but just the goss. That's all. I want the tea and I want it spilled. Okay, so Melbourne's only community television station, C31, is celebrating its 30th years. That's why we have these luminaries here joining us on the airwaves tonight. And after 30 years of broadcasting across the airwaves, there's a special gala event that's happening on Saturday week, actually, isn't it? October 5. It's at Cathedral Hall on Brunswick Street. And if you'd love to get tickets, there's still some tickets available. Head to C31, so letter and the two numbers, c31.org.au. Congratulations to all four of you and your involvement in the network. And this one is, hi, my brother is Liam O'Hara, who was involved in Channel 31 and its predecessors as well, RMI TV. He lives in England now, and I tried to contact him when I heard this going on. Look, it's been lovely to have you all four. I feel a real treat. I hope people at home feel the same. Thanks for coming in, and let's hope that another 30 years, that's not just looking back, but it's also looking forward.
Yes.
Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.